I want to talk about rising for the great change. And you notice I'm saying the great change. This is the great turning, the great awakening, the great transformation. It's not a small change. It's a profound change in our direction away from the icebergs up ahead in the dark. It's a choosing life on earth. It's not creating a utopian world in which there's no pain. It's not creating a world in which there ceases to be any suffering. Suffering seems to be interwoven into human life and into our journey. It is creating, though, a graduation from our war-weary adolescence to our conscious adulthood, where we decide as individuals and as a nation and as a humanity that we are going to go to the next level as a planet. We are going to green the earth, replant the forests. We're going to create health care that is a right for everyone. We're going to remove and eradicate the pockets of poverty and hunger and suffering around the planet, because that's the only thing that's in our own best self-enlightened interests, to create a world that works for everyone. Because we have weapons of mass destruction now. Now look how far we've come. There's hope, folks. Paul Hawken, in his book, Blessed Unrest, says that there are at least 1.5 million organizations around the planet committed to environmental restoration and or human rights. 1.5 million, let alone all the peace organizations, all the churches, all the synagogues, all the mosques, all the folks who are really committed to love and compassion. There's at least 3 million groups around the planet, at least, who are moving in this direction. And here's the key piece. It's a spiritual democracy, like the Dalai Lama says. If we want to go to the great change, we have to rise for the great change. And hundreds of millions of us have to be leaders. We have to be the movement, to have the energy to do what needs to be done, and to do it fairly quickly, especially with regard to things like the global warming issue. It is an imperative that we create the great change, which has to do with creating the conditions for peace on earth. So if you ask me about the great change, the great turning, the great awakening, I would give you this vision. 200 years from now, in the 23rd century, historians will look back at our era and call it humanity's great change, great awakening. They will say that an inclusive, unifying, love-based movement in which millions of people took responsibility to live with respect for each other and all life was able in the 21st century to create the conditions for sustainable peace on earth. They will say this great change was preceded by a dark time when human actions threatened the very fabric of life. Many called it a revolution of the spirit, because at its heart was both the individual awakening to the light of the soul and the dawn of our conscious humanity. Others called it the Green Revolution, because through ecology we came to understand the profound interdependence of all life, and thus we transformed our energy systems from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and from a polluting, disposable society to one based in wisdom and conservation. As a result, we were able to create a movement of movements, a coming together of all of these movements dedicated to our two greatest goals: restoring the earth, reversing global warming, protecting the diversity of species, and fostering a sustainable society and creating peace, ending hunger and poverty, increasing health and social justice, and advancing human rights for all people across race, creed, and gender. One earth, one humanity. May you rise for the great change.